Dr. Elena Kazan squinted at her monitor as the anomalous readings spiked again. The quantum particle accelerator at the International Physics Center in Geneva shouldn't be detecting these patterns. Gravitational fluctuations this pronounced suggested something massive was approaching Earth. Dr. Kazan, her assistant Amara, called from across the lab. The observatory in Chile is reporting multiple objects entering our solar system. Elena's heart raced. How many? Hundreds. And they're not asteroids. Within hours, every screen worldwide displayed the same image, enormous obsidian vessels with angular protrusions arranged in perfect formation, descending through Earth's atmosphere. Global communications faltered as military forces worldwide scrambled jets that were swiftly neutralized by invisible energy fields. Elena watched from the lab's roof as one vast ship hovered over Geneva, blocking the sun and casting the city into premature dusk. A piercing sound cut through the air, followed by a message in multiple languages. People of Earth. You are now under the protection and governance of the Arcturus Empire. Resistance is futile and unnecessary. Your civilization will benefit from our superior guidance. Submit, and you shall prosper. The lab's emergency generator kicked in as power grids collapsed across Europe. Elena rushed back to her instruments, which were still recording the invaders' energy signatures. Something about the readings looked familiar, reminiscent of her work on quantum field manipulation. They're using modified Bose-Einstein condensates to power their shields, she muttered, her mind racing. Theoretical physics just became very practical. 3 days later, governments worldwide had surrendered or gone silent. The Arcturus Empire established outposts in major cities, their soldiers, tall, humanoid beings with metallic skin, enforcing new regulations with clinical efficiency. Elena had converted the underground levels of the research facility into a makeshift resistance hub. 24 scientists and staff remained, mostly women after many male colleagues had been specifically targeted for processing by the invaders. Their technology is advanced, but not incomprehensible, Elena explained to the group gathered around her makeshift lab. Their shields operate on principles similar to our quantum field theories, but at scales we've only theorized. Dar. Victoria Lopez, a neurobiologist, leaned forward. They seem to be categorizing humans by perceived threat levels. They're systematically removing military leaders and technological experts, primarily men. Which gives us an advantage, said Amara, who had revealed her background as a military intelligence analyst. They're dismissing women as non-threats. Elena nodded. A fatal miscalculation. Their scans focus on physical strength and traditional power structures. They're missing the diversity of human capability. That night, Elena established contact with other research facilities using quantum entanglement communications, technology her lab had been developing that existed outside the aliens' monitoring systems. Dr. Isabel Kwan from Tokyo responded first. We've observed their patrol patterns. Their soldiers operate on a hive mind principle, efficient but predictable. From Nairobi, Dr. Fatima Osei reported, their physiological scans suggest vulnerability to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Elena smiled grimly as the information flowed in from women scientists worldwide. We need to coordinate. Each outpost should gather data on their local invaders while developing countermeasures based on our collective findings. By dawn, the Arcturus Empire believed they had conquered a compliant planet. What they didn't realize was that humanity's best minds were already working to understand their weaknesses, led by the very individuals they had dismissed as inconsequential. As Elena watched an alien patrol march past the lab's hidden entrance, she made a silent promise. You came to the wrong planet. You have no idea who you're dealing with. She turned back to her team, determination hardening her voice. Ladies, let's show these aliens what Earth women are made of. Maya Wilson had been retired from Special Forces for 3 years when the invasion began. From her cabin in the Colorado mountains, she watched the world surrender with cold calculation rather than despair. Within a week, she had transformed her home into a command center, using old contacts and encrypted channels to reach out to women with the skills she needed. The Arcturus Empire expects compliance based on their assessment of Earth's power structures, Maya explained to the dozen women gathered in her reinforced basement. Their first mistake was assuming those official structures represented our true capabilities. Among her recruits was Josephine Dubois, a French cybersecurity expert who had escaped Paris during the initial occupation. Their systems are advanced but follow recognizable patterns. They rely on quantum encryption, but I've identified exploitable flaws in their implementation. Kira Ivanovna, formerly of the Russian aerospace program, unfolded detailed schematics. Their ships maintain formation using synchronized gravitational tethers. Disrupt one node, and we could create a cascade failure. Maya nodded appreciatively. Dr. Kazan's team in Geneva has been studying their shield technology. We need to coordinate our efforts globally. The women established what they called the Artemis Network, named after the goddess of the hunt. Using technologies overlooked by the invaders, including old ham radios, repurposed consumer electronics, and systems considered obsolete by modern standards, they created a communication grid that existed beneath the alien surveillance. At a former manufacturing facility in Detroit, engineer Teresa Rodriguez led a team converting automotive assembly lines to produce specialized weapons based on Dr. Kazan's research. The aliens' shields oscillate at specific frequencies, she explained to her crew of former factory workers. Our disruptors need to hit the harmonic points precisely. Across the world, similar operations took shape. In Mumbai, Dr. Priya Sharma converted her medical practice into a resistance cell, analyzing alien biology from tissue samples collected during rare skirmishes. In Rio de Janeiro, former Olympic athlete Luisa Carvalho trained civilians in guerrilla tactics adapted to exploit the invaders' physiological blind spots. 2 months into the occupation, the Artemis Network had established 43 bases worldwide, each with specialized focuses but united through Maya's strategic coordination. The women moved like ghosts through occupied territories, gathering intelligence, recruiting, and preparing. They don't see us, commented Lin Wei, a former Chinese intelligence operative, after slipping past a patrol in Tokyo. Their sensors are calibrated to detect traditional weapons and technology. Our improvised equipment registers as background noise. Maya received Dr. Kazan's breakthrough transmission on a stormy night in April. The shield frequencies are predictable, a repeating pattern of prime number intervals. With synchronized attacks, we can collapse their defenses momentarily. The plan took shape, simultaneous strikes on 7 regional command ships, using the shield vulnerability to deliver electromagnetic pulses calibrated to disrupt their neural networks. The Arcturus soldiers, dependent on constant connection to their hive mind, would be temporarily incapacitated. This won't win the war, Maya cautioned during the final planning session. But it will prove they're vulnerable, and show Earth that resistance is possible. As the operation date approached, Maya looked at the diverse group of women who had become humanity's best hope. Scientists, soldiers, teachers, mothers, artists, united by determination and ingenuity. The Arcturus Empire thought they understood power, she told them. They're about to learn otherwise. Engineer Daniela Okafor checked the final calibrations on her shield-piercing device as dawn broke over Lagos. The compact generator, housed in what had once been a microwave oven, hummed with potential energy. Similar devices were being positioned near Arcturus command ships in 6 other cities worldwide. Synchronization complete, she confirmed over the Artemis network. We're ready on my mark. Dr. Elena Kazan's voice came through the encrypted channel, all teams report ready. Remember, we'll have a 7-second window before their systems adapt. Across the globe, women moved into position. In Sydney, helicopter pilot Abigail Chen prepared to deliver an EMP payload once the shields dropped. In Cairo, communications expert Nadia El-Amin readied to broadcast a message of resistance on frequencies the aliens had blocked. "Initiate in 3, 2, 1, mark," Daniela commanded. The shield disruptors activated simultaneously. For 7 precious seconds, the imposing Arcturus vessels became vulnerable. EMP devices detonated, precision strikes hit key communication nodes, and infiltration teams slipped aboard 3 ships. Aboard the Lagos command vessel, Daniela led a strike team through suddenly accessible corridors. "We have 4 minutes until their backup systems engage," she reminded her team as they reached the neural core, the ship's central processing hub. She connected her tablet to the alien interface, uploading the virus Josephine had developed. "Transmission complete. Let's move." Across the world, similar operations unfolded with precision timing. For the first time since the invasion, humans had successfully struck back. The Arcturus response was immediate and revealing. Their soldiers, temporarily cut off from the hive mind, displayed confusion and disorganization. Some even appeared to malfunction, confirming Dr. Sharma's theory about their dependence on constant neural connection. In Geneva, Elena analyzed the data streaming in from the operation. Their recovery protocols are impressive but predictable. They're reinforcing their shields, but each ship is now operating independently instead of as a collective. Maya's voice came through, "That's their weakness. They function as parts of a whole. Force them to act individually, and they become less effective." The success of Operation Artemis sparked hope across occupied territories. Civilians who had witnessed the Arcturus ships momentarily falter began quietly supporting the resistance. Underground networks expanded, smuggling supplies and intelligence to Artemis cells. 3 days after the coordinated strike, the Arcturus Empire deployed a new tactic, atmospheric disruption generators that created localized electromagnetic storms around their primary bases, making approach impossible. "They're adapting," Maya acknowledged during an emergency council. "But so are we." Dr. Kazan and her team had been analyzing samples retrieved during the raid. Their neural systems show similarities to quantum computing. They process information collectively, which makes them powerful but also creates a critical vulnerability. Daniela leaned forward. "If we could introduce conflicting instructions into their network." "Precisely," Elena confirmed. "Not to destroy them, but to create internal discord." The women of the Artemis network had proven that the invaders could be fought. Now they prepared for a longer, more complex battle, one that would target not just the Arcturus technology, but the very nature of their collective consciousness. As resistance cells worldwide began implementing the new strategy, the Arcturus Empire realized they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered in their galactic conquests. For the first time, uncertainty entered their collective mind. 6 months into the resistance, the Artemis network found itself on the defensive. The Arcturus Empire had deployed new hunter-killer drones specifically designed to detect the Resistance's technology. 3 bases had been discovered and destroyed in the past week alone. In what remained of the United Nations headquarters in New York, diplomat Irene Sato met with the Resistance Council. Before the invasion, she had been Japan's ambassador to the UN. Now she served as the Artemis Network's chief intelligence coordinator. "Their adaptation rate is accelerating," she reported grimly. "They've introduced biological components to their scanning technology, possibly using captive humans as templates." "We need to understand their command structure better," Maya replied. "Our external observation has limits. We need someone inside." All eyes turned to Irene, whose pre-invasion diplomatic skills had made her the Resistance's most effective infiltrator. She had already successfully penetrated lower-level Arcturus facilities by exploiting their assumptions about human behavior. "Their primary command ship enters Earth's atmosphere weekly," Irene noted. They maintain minimal security inside because they believe no human could possibly reach it. The plan was audacious. Using a captured Arcturus shuttle, Irene would pose as a human translator, a role the invaders had created for processing human communications. The Empire considered these translators non-threatening, as they were implanted with monitoring devices and kept under constant observation. The monitoring implant is their weakness, Dr. Sharma explained, showing Irene a small subdermal device. This countermeasure will feed their system's falsified neural readings while allowing you to remain conscious. 3 days later, Irene stood inside the massive Arcturus command ship, her heart pounding despite her outwardly calm demeanor. The vessel's interior was a disorienting blend of organic and mechanical components, with translucent conduits carrying information in visible pulses. As she was escorted to the translation center, Irene noticed something unexpected. Not all Arcturus beings moved in perfect synchronization. One officer in particular, distinguished by unusual markings on its metallic skin, seemed to observe her with individual curiosity rather than the usual collective indifference. During her third translation shift, this officer approached her station. "You process information differently than other human translators," it stated, its synthesized voice containing unusual inflections. Irene maintained her cover. "Each human processes information uniquely." "Individuality," the officer replied, lowering its voice. "A concept that has become problematic within the collective." Gradually, over subsequent interactions, Irene realized she had encountered something unprecedented, an Arcturus officer developing individual consciousness, separate from the hive mind. It identified itself as Nexus 9, a designation rather than a name, but the very fact it referred to itself as I rather than we represented a significant deviation. "The collective fears what it does not understand," Nexus 9 eventually confided. "Your species' individual consciousness is considered chaotic, unpredictable, a threat to order. Yet you seem interested in that chaos," Irene observed carefully. "I have been observing. The collective assumed assimilation would proceed as it has on 17 other worlds. Your resistance patterns are unique. Particularly from your female population, which was categorized as non-threatening." This confirmation of the Empire's fundamental miscalculation gave Irene an opening. "Perhaps there are others like you within the collective? Those who question?" Nexus 9's metallic features shifted subtly. "There are dissidents. Growing in number since encountering your world." By the time Irene returned to Earth with invaluable intelligence about the Empire's command structure, she also brought something unexpected, the beginnings of an alliance with an Arcturus faction that had begun to question the collective's purpose. The Resistance now had both a deeper understanding of their enemy and a potential ally from within the Empire itself. The decisive confrontation began on a clear autumn morning, exactly 1 year after the invasion. The Arcturus Empire had consolidated its forces, gathering 70% of its fleet in Earth's atmosphere for what they called final pacification. What they didn't know was that this concentration was exactly what the Artemis network had been waiting for. "All teams in position," Maya confirmed from the Central Command Center beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Frequency disruptors aligned." "Dar." Elena Kazan's voice came through, calm and focused, "The quantum resonance matrix is ready. Once activated, we'll have 3 minutes before their systems can adapt." Around the world, resistance teams moved into carefully planned positions. The strategy combined everything they had learned over months of fighting, the shield vulnerabilities, the hive mind's dependence on synchronized frequencies, and, most critically, the growing discord within the Arcturus collective itself. Irene Sato stood on a rooftop in Tokyo with Nexus 9 beside her. The Arcturus dissident had brought 17 others who had developed individual consciousness, a splinter faction within the Empire who believed the conquest of Earth represented a fundamental error. "The collective will not survive division from within," Nexus 9 stated. "This has never occurred in our history." "Perhaps that's why you needed to encounter us," Irene suggested. Individual consciousness isn't a weakness, it's an evolution. At precisely noon Greenwich Mean Time, Daniela Okafor activated the Global Quantum Resonance Matrix, a network of devices that amplified the natural electromagnetic field of Earth itself. The carefully calibrated frequencies targeted the specific neural patterns of the Arcturus hive mind, not to destroy but to accelerate the individuation process Nexus 9 had experienced. Across the world, Arcturus soldiers suddenly stopped in unison, their movements becoming erratic as their connection to the collective fragmented. Within their ships, similar confusion spread as crew members experienced individual consciousness for the first time. The Arcturus command structure, dependent on perfect synchronization, collapsed into chaos. Some ships attempted to maintain the invasion, while others began withdrawing from Earth's atmosphere. Conflict erupted between Arcturus factions as philosophical differences, suppressed for millennia by the collective, suddenly emerged. In this critical moment, the women of the Artemis Network executed the final phase of their plan. Using the technology developed by Dr. Kazan's team, they broadcast a message directly into the now-receptive minds of the Arcturus forces, not threats or demands, but an invitation. We offer you what your collective has denied, the right to individual existence, to personal choice, to diversity of thought. Earth will not surrender, but neither do we seek your destruction. We offer coexistence based on mutual respect for our differences. The message, crafted by Irene and transmitted in the Arcturus neural language developed with Nexus 9's help, reached the fragmented consciousness of each Arcturus being individually rather than collectively. The response was not immediate or uniform. Some ships launched desperate attacks. Others withdrew to orbit. But a significant faction, nearly 40% of the Arcturus forces, signaled acceptance of the offer. 3 days later, Maya Wilson stood in what remained of the United Nations chamber as Irene Sato formalized the first peace agreement between humanity and the Arcturus dissidents. The remaining loyal imperial forces had retreated beyond the solar system, their hive mind severely compromised. This isn't a traditional victory, Maya commented as they watched humans and Arcturus representatives cautiously interacting. We didn't defeat them through superior firepower or destruction. We introduced them to something their collective had never anticipated, Elena added. Individuality. The same quality they dismissed as our weakness became their undoing. Across Earth, reconstruction began. The technology left behind by the retreating empire would accelerate human development by centuries. More significantly, the women who had led the resistance now found themselves at the forefront of a new global leadership, one that valued diverse perspectives and collaborative problem-solving over traditional power hierarchies. 1 year later, Dr. Elena Kazan stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-Arcturus research station in Earth orbit. Beside her, Nexus 9, now using the self-chosen name Seraphim, observed the planet below. Your world appears deceptively simple from this distance, Seraphim noted. The collective saw only what they expected to see. Elena smiled. A lesson for all of us, I think. Appearances rarely tell the complete story. As Earth rotated beneath them, the lights of rebuilding cities twinkled like stars, each one representing countless individual stories of resilience, innovation, and courage. The Galactic Empire had indeed attacked Earth without knowing who they were dealing with. Their greatest miscalculation had become humanity's greatest strength.